Who's this young lady? Oh, it's Cleopatra. She's like the main queen of Egypt, right? Everyone knows her name. And you know what's amazing? Turns out she was also a very skilled chemist. Yeah, I know it's hard to picture her in a lab coat with a bunch of test tubes, but that's how it was back then. The 1887 painting Cleopatra Tests Poisons on Prisoners is a work by the French artist Alexandre Cabanel, a representative of academism. It depicts a scene from the life of the ancient Egyptian queen Cleopatra, who, according to legend, experimented with various poisons on slaves condemned to death. Cabanel created this painting in his studio in Paris and exhibited it at the Salon in 1887. It received positive reviews from critics and the public and was purchased by Napoleon III for his collection. In this picture, we see Cleopatra testing her latest or not latest batch of poisons on a group of unfortunate prisoners. Now you may be wondering, why on earth would she do that? Well, let me tell you, Cleopatra was always looking for new and creative ways to massacre her enemies, and what better way to test the effectiveness of a poison than to test it on a few desperate prisoners. There is another rather interesting theory wandering around the internet that Cleopatra was looking for poison not for her enemies, but for herself. Yes, as creepy as it sounds, it's probably true. History tells us that the Egyptian queen killed herself with the poisonous Egyptian cobra to avoid becoming a prisoner of Emperor Octavian. The sources for this event are the works of ancient historians, Plutarch, Strabo, and Dion Cassius. Thus, in the painting, we see Cleopatra VII Philopator looking for the most painless poison capable of quickly sending her soul into the realm of Osiris. On the left-hand side of the picture, you see the prisoners. They're the real heroes of this painting, if you ask me. However, their identities are not revealed, leaving viewers guessing who they are and why they were chosen for this macabre experiment. These prisoners are not thrilled to be part of Cleopatra's gruesome experiment. I've reached this verdict judging by the expression on the face of the prisoner closest to us, and the way he clings to his stomach in pain from the position. The second prisoner is the result of deadly toxins and is already being carried away. But maybe it's better than being executed by the sword or boiled in a copper ox, right? And who knows, maybe these poor bastards will get lucky and survive the poison. Spoiler, probably not. Here's something else worth noticing. One should not exclude the possibility that these prisoners were not prisoners, but merely volunteered to do anything for the sake of their beautiful queen. And the word prisoners is only a fantasy of the artist in the final phase of painting the picture. Look at the guy in the center. He's trying to get something out of himself and look his best for the queen. And the guy on the far right says, I don't care, give me the poison already. These guys are the de facto condemned to death, but they're still trying to make the most of their last moments. Okay, let's stop talking about sad things and look at some of the details of this picture. First, look at Cleopatra's outfit. It's true royal fashion. The queen is dressed in a gorgeous, multicolored dressing gown, and on her head is the classic headdress of the female elite of ancient Egypt, the neret, such a cap in the shape of a female vulture. It seems to me, but this royal attire just screams, I'm the queen and you're all beneath me. Cleopatra, in luxurious robes, is leaning gracefully against the back of the sofa. She's cold and, however inappropriate the word is to the situation, but relaxed. The maid, who is waving a fan around her mistress, her back and arms are beautifully painted, looks on curiously. A cheetah lies beside Cleopatra. Egyptian mythology represents the goddess Mafdet, the protector of the pharaohs, who is in charge of justice, especially in the area of executions. Mafdet is traditionally depicted as a woman with a cheetah's head, and Cleopatra's head is adorned with a griffin head, symbolizing femininity. The vulture, however, is a carrion eater, so the place of the executions is where it belongs. The coloring of the painting is deftly constructed. It is divided into two parts. The shaded aisle, from which the gaudy, proud queen and her elegant maid, amid gorgeous fabrics surrounded by flowers, lazily and indifferently watch the scene, and the wearying sun over the square before the columns, so well painted, under which the executions are being carried out. But the real star or highlight of this painting is Cleopatra's stern face. Artist Alexandre Cabanel has done an incredible job of conveying her intense and calculating gaze. You can practically see the wheels turning in her head as she considers her next move. And look at those perfectly arched eyebrows. She's been to the same eyebrow master as Cara Delevingne or Emilia Clarke. What is key in this picture? What allows us to explore the theme? That's right, poisons. In this painting, Cleopatra has set up a table with various vials and jars of poisons. And let me tell you, she has quite a collection. There's snake venom, hemlock, arsenic, and even good old cyanide. She's the Walter White of ancient Egypt. But unfortunately, or fortunately, that table stands outside the picture. We only see the woman executioner or savior with a small jar in her hand looking at the vial of poison she's holding. It's a beautiful green shade that stands out against the white Egyptian sand. It's worth noting that we don't know what kind of poison was in the jar. Speaking of deadly poisons, let's talk a little about hemlock, the most common poison of the past. Hemlock is a poisonous plant that could cause paralysis and respiratory failure. It's one of the most famous poisons in history, thanks in part to its association with Socrates. You know, the guy who questioned everything and annoyed everyone. Socrates was famously executed by drinking hemlock, so you know it's a real poison. One of the things that are interesting about this painting is that Cleopatra is portrayed as both a scientist and a queen. She doesn't just randomly poison people, she tests the effectiveness of various poisons. Such work requires a certain level of knowledge and skill, not to mention a total lack of empathy, but we'll ignore that for now. History tells us that Cleopatra was not the only ancient Egyptian woman who dabbled in poisons. The Egyptians were known for their advanced knowledge of toxicology. They used poisons for everything, from medicine to cosmetics to embalming. So when Cleopatra tested her poisons on convicted prisoners, she was just continuing a long tradition of Egyptian experimentation with poisons. The story behind the painting may be fictional or based on real events. Cabanel may have been inspired by stories about Cleopatra from his Orientalist friends or a visit to Egypt in 1868. Perhaps he also wanted to show his mastery in depicting female beauty and erotic allure. Either way, the painting is an example of his talent and style, which made him famous in France and beyond. Cabanel is often criticized for not reflecting the tragedy of the situation in the film. However, in this particular case, it's not entirely true. In terms of Cleopatra herself, her maid, and globally of those tough times, is anything out of place? Not at all. The lives of the prisoners belong to the queen. However, Cabanel does not seek to show us the queen's indifference to other people's lives either. He's occupied by the external side of what's going on, and this he demonstrates in all its glory. Another interesting thing in the painting is the way Cabanel depicted the lighting. The prisoners are in shadow, while Cleopatra is flooded with light. This emphasizes her strength and superiority over the condemned. Other than that, it just looks cool. And while we're on the subject of cool, let's talk about the color palette of this painting. The blues and greens are awesome. They help create an oppressive mood and an eerie atmosphere, as these colors are as cold as Cleopatra's heart during the eerie massacre. The shadows and highlight give the scene depth and dimension, and the overall effect is both beautiful and eerie. The painting is a testament to the power of the queen and the brutality of the time, but it is also a fascinating glimpse into the world of experimentation with poisons.